before we dive in, what's interesting for you guys? What's interesting? Is it Tara? Am I doing that correct? Pronouncing Tara.
Yeah, perfect.
What's
Yeah.
as we kind of create based on what's interesting for everybody today. Tara, what's an interesting edge, or what's a difficulty, or what are you excited about, or a latest aha? What brings you here today?
Um, good question. I haven't thought about it yet, but I started perfectly okay like a month ago and still tasting all the flavors. But really, what I really like is the aha in the connection of what I feel with you guys. Like every single meeting, it's like a different kind of connection. What is the deepest layer of my being or so? That is how I feel, right? So yeah, that is really a feeling of coming home. So I think maybe for me that would be a topic that excites me also. Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the right space because it's my first time in this meeting, but I have no clue of what the insights is
Oh my.
but yeah.
Isn't that exciting for all of us, what Tara just said? To taste different layers, deepest layers of her being, to taste flavors of coming home. And may we today, the four of us who are with you, may we get to taste that and give Tara some nice experiences of this. Thank you, Tara. Wonderful, perfect. What a wonderful invitation to us all.
Oh, thank
Maddie,
you.
what? Oh, yes, Maddie. What's interesting for you today?
Hi. I'm training in IFS, but I also went through the finder's course stuff, and um I just saw the video of your sort of IFS, non-dual IFS GAE, which is really beautiful. That video, at least the first half I've seen, where you said I am. It's about a year ago, and then I'm aware of, and I felt just by watching it, I felt this clarification of self and unblending of parts.
Will you give us another sentence on that? The
Sure.
in speaking, I am and what's there, and then I'm aware of. Say a little bit more for us. Maybe we'll play with that together today.
Okay. Um, well, you started out with about 5 minutes of saying, um, I am, and then using the quality of self or awareness or that beingness. And it seemed like the people on the call were very familiar with going to that place of beingness. And then it was an interesting switch to then go into I am aware of feeling of anxiety. I'm aware of contraction. And so you have the the awareness, let's say the background self or awareness, kind of embracing the experiences, the many experiences. So the one and the many coming together.
Beautiful. One more question then. This, as a in exploring IFS, what's the most exciting edge for you right now in IFS non-duality or your opening?
One more time. What was the verb?
Hmm. What's most exciting? Like we got from Tara, this excitement of feeling different flavors of home, of this depth. What's the most exciting edge for you right now? Just so you
Uh,
can kind of invite the four of us to make this as meaningful as we can for you.
thank you. Well, I guess it was that was sparked by watching that video on your channel. And it was the mystery of um, being self as parts, the conscious meeting or identity, shared identity between self and parts, um, or fundamental well-being and suffering, maybe, or pain, if it's not suffering.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Maddie.
For me, that's exciting because I have suffering coming up, but I notice that there's bliss at the same time. It's very mysterious to me.
Wait, what's this is like? What is this like for us as we hear Maddie? How is this real? Is wait, I have there's suffering here, but there's also bliss at the same time. There's fundamental well-being, and there are also difficult challenges. Oh, I don't like this, and preferences. What's it like to have all of that occurring within us, and how do we make sense of it? How do we make sense of that? How do we make sense of it?
I found it even comforting as you were saying it, Maddie, because I recognize I recognize that layer, you know? So I'm like, oh, I have the same. Yeah, that's life, you know? And the connection in this makes it blissful, you know? It makes it again something that you're not alone with. And for me, I sense it like that. It's yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Tara.
Wonderful. And before we go to Dave and hear what his edge is, let me do my 30-second housekeeping that I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm a mediator. And for me, we're friends and colleagues exploring together. Everybody's good, being responsible for their own journeys. Can I get a thumbs up from you, please? And then secondly, I always have this recorded, but only my square is ever shared. Only my image, never your image for those who can't make it and interested. However, the audio that you share could be included. However, if there's any reservations about that, just let me know. I make you a co-host and you click pause when you speak. That's my preference. However, at the end, you're like, holy moly, I wish I hadn't said that. Just let me know and I go delete, delete, delete. If everybody's good with this, that it could be shared. If I could get a thumbs up from you, please. And this group, I'm going to close it so it will be the intimacy of the four of us with you today. And Jack's like, yay, heart. Dave, who's also not feeling so well, like Jack, what's the edge here? What's exciting for you today?
Recently, I've been exploring some of my conditioning as it relates to um, strong preconceived interpretations of the world. And I've been, for the last few days, I've been feeling a calm internally and a calm physically coming from. I was talking to Donna Liu, who also had she does some stuff on POK. And what was interesting is in talking with her, she pointed out that even though we can recognize some of our parts, some of our conditioning, it can take a while for it to um, they've been holding our interpretation of the world, and as I release it, even though I can recognize it, I'm still shaped by it, and so it can take a while for the shaping to change. And I feel like I've been interpreting the world less through my conditioning, and it's been quite wonderful. Um, and definitely recognizing my interpretations of the world when they happen. Um, so yeah, very exciting.
Wow,
Yes.
sounds great, Dave. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how did you do that? How did you get in that state of mind? What did happen for you that opened up a different view of experiencing those things, maybe?
So I've been wondering why I look at the world the way I do. I have a very strong need to protect myself because when I was younger, a couple things happened. Um, uh, we were evacuated out of Libya in 1967, and there were people throwing rocks at the car. Windows smashed in. And then shortly after that, I walked off a ledge, and I didn't float; I fell, and that gave me sort of broken ribs and concussion. And and then I attended a boarding school for 5 years. So all of that, I developed a very strong need to protect myself, and that affects how I look at the world in a fundamental way, and it's tiring, right? It's tiring. It's a lot of work to kind of keep up that need to interpret, and so I just turned 60, and I've been working on recognizing that. I guess over a year now, with Sid and with other people, and just through the Headless Way and through the POK website, and just noticing how a thing will happen, and then I'll have a need to be defensive about it, or I'll need to interpret it in a way that I won't get hurt. And I'm tired of it. I'm just literally functionally tired of it. And Sid, you have a question? Hit me.
Oh, there's such richness there as we hear Dave speak. Can it be that he's facilitating all of us here as he speaks of? I'm wondering, curious, why I look at the world the way I do, why I interpret experience the way I do. What's that like to be with that question? How I interpret experience. And then he said, I notice I have a strong need to protect myself. Strong need to protect myself. And Maddie, who's kind of studying IFS, we speak of that as far as the vulnerability in our system and these protectors, these voices that come and kind of take care of the vulnerability and try to make it safe or distract us from it. Strong need to protect myself. How does that resonate in your system? There's strong need to protect myself. And then even with that, can you find that sometimes there's a charge there on protecting myself? It's like a no, or got to do this, can't do this, or stress and anxiety. And other times, and then maybe this is how it plays in our friend Jack, it's kind of an IFS, we call it an unburdened part, where the protector's there and it just does that. Of course, no, we're not going to step off the cliff. Or gosh, it's scary when they're throwing things at me. I need to put my hand up, or I don't like this, but there's no charge there. Call that the unburdened protectors. And sometimes this sense of flow where it just occurs, but it's not a problem. Or we were talking about Locke Kelly at the beginning, and he has this line, what's here when there's no problem to be solved? So that protection can be here, but it's not really a problem. Just to notice that. And then lastly, when Dave said, and I'm tired of it. And what I think he's tired of is where it has a charge, where it's kind of got a little burden, where it's not just the flow, but I'm tired of it. And when you hear that, what about in your system? Where do you find I'm tired of it? Can you find that voice, that voice that arrives, what in the finders Jeffrey might call like a narrative voice that shows up? I'm tired of it. And lastly, as we speak about our inner worlds, is it okay that all of this is here, that this is happening, that there's a curious understanding part, like why do I do this? Why do I look at the world this way? There's a part that's figuring it out, that's curious, that's thinking about. There's another part that these parts that are protecting, a strong need to protect, that they're here. And there's this other part. God, I'm literally tired of this. It's taking so much work. This is exhausting. Can it be okay that all of those parts are here? What's going on, Dave? How's this playing in you?
Yeah, that's a good summary. And recently there's been uh, an increase in calm um, um, in myself, less of a need to interpret the world that way.
Mm, nice, nice. Thank you. And before we go to Jack again, you know, Tara spoke about home and like tasting home. So as we're playing with what Dave shared, how do we find home in the midst of all of that? Especially if we really followed inside and find those parts that are active in us, the one that's trying to make sense of it, the one that is protecting, the ones that are protecting, and the ones that are tired of it. If all of those are here, is it like, oh, how can home be here? This is a cacophony of activity and tension inside me, this theater. How do we taste home in the midst of that? So I want to just suggest real quickly 3 ways, and then we'll go to Jack. The first way is kind of the Advaita way of just stepping back and being aware of, resting in awareness. In the midst of all of that, are you aware? Is there a presence here? Is there an okayness? It's kind of stepping back to that. See if you can taste that, this okayness, this presence, this awareness in the midst of all of the activity. The second way is what I was asking a few moments ago. Yeah, can you be okay with all of that? There can be okayness with all of this here. And this is the sense of just a welcoming of what's here. Wow, look at all this life that's moving inside of me. Can all of that, can I be okay with that? Can I welcome it all? And then can I even enjoy it? Can there be an enjoyment of, oh, this preciousness of this part that Dave's speaking of that's kind of exhausted from this? It's exhausted. The parts that are protecting. Can we see the preciousness of the life moving inside of us? And then can we even as we feel it, and this is really pushing an edge, can there be an enjoyment of it? Can there actually be an enjoyment of how life is moving in us? And here, there's still the separation that Maddie was speaking of. There's still the sense of awareness, the set welcomes, the set enjoys, and the content, the objects, the parts. So we're just playing with that in the second view. And the third view, which we've all tasted, this bliss of oneness, everything is of self, everything is of beingness. Jack often points to this one, where there is no, like, even parts in self or burdened parts in self, that division, that separation doesn't make sense anymore. Everything is of this beauty. Everything is an expression of life, an expression of love. 3 different ways of knowing home, and you might have a dozen other ways. 3 other ways. See if we can taste that and even glimpse that one, that these parts, this that protects, is not separate from the fundamental well-being. All right. And then let's hear, Jack, you were talking about Locke's kind of map, but what's anything else that's most interesting for you today, or what you'd like to share that's here for you?
Yeah, Dave brought up a trigger for me, which is when I was probably right about 5 years old. My younger brother and I got into a rock fight with the kids across the street. Uh, don't remember even really why necessarily. And they hit my brother with a rock right in the middle of the forehead. He was really bleeding pretty badly. So it wasn't like, throwing in a car. So it was like throwing it at our heads as hard as they could. So I still get triggered if kids are trying to throw rocks at me. Um, and then the other thing that you reminded me was my uncle. I don't know if it was the same time you were leaving Libya, but he was working for the government getting a lot of U.S. embassy people out of Libya. And I think it was right about the same time frame. He's got all kinds of stories about how hard that was because I don't know, for all kinds of I don't want to go into the stories, but so that really triggered that memory of his description of what that was like as a government worker to he was successful getting him up, but some of the tricks he pulled to get people to boats and leave boats where he could, they couldn't start the all kinds of stuff anyway. But um, so that really came up. That memory really came up strong for me. And then Maddie, what Maddie came was talking about earlier. Okay, like okay, so I am triggered, right? And then you go to, well, I feel triggered. Then you go to I'm aware of being triggered. Then you go to I'm aware of a part that's triggered. Then you go to I'm aware of a part that's not triggered by whatever it was. And then you go to I'm aware of the awareness that's neither triggered nor not triggered. So it's taking it to these different levels that maybe different levels that Tara was talking about. And that whole process, um, that comes from Locke Kelly, by the way. Well, a lot of other people too, but so yeah, as a step by step process of sort of like feeling back into that
Nice.
like that third, that fifth, or whatever you think I talk about three, right? But getting that sort of accepting them and accepting their opposites and realizing that you're neither one of those two, or you can look at yourself that way. So that came up pretty strong for me that I can do that with triggers. It's not I don't want to push them away. I don't want to bypass them. And I'm certainly have a lot of compassion for that little kid that was, angry enough to be getting a rock fight, right? And the one that couldn't help his brother not get hit in the head by a rock. I mean, those are all parts that I don't want to push away. But uh, you guys have triggered for me this morning.
Perfect. Perfect. So it gets to be real life, right? We're not in some spiritual playland. We're just off in this. It's just real life. And Jack speaks of his brother getting hit by the rock in the forehead. And when he has that memory, or when stories like that show up, there's a trigger. Calls it a trigger. And then and then he speaks at the end about, well, what I can do with that trigger, how I relate to that trigger, which is where Maddie kind of started us off here. What's our relation with content, with parts? So how does that, can we all find something like that? As Jack had his trigger recalled from Dave's story. As triggers play in our life, as memories of something that happened in the past play, what's our relation to them? And is there a sense of choice? Is there a sense of choice? Like, I was playing with three different views of like finding home in the midst of that. Jack gave us a number of different ways of playing with it. Can you find a sense of choice? And really, in IFS terms, the trigger, the memory, is something that a part carries. A part carries something like, gosh, that shouldn't have happened. I don't like that. I prefer if it didn't happen. Or the sense of even the exile that's still a little shocked by perhaps seeing his brother be hit in the head by a rock, or Dave in the car and the rocks coming at him, and the fear that was there. So, right now, what's it like to be you in this moment? What's here? How are you? How are you in this moment? Do you notice the foreground of the parts? Well, I'm trying to understand this. Oh, I have a memory just like this. It's very uncomfortable. Another part, like, well, what's our best approach to this? How do we deal with this? Or another part, maybe you should just feel it. Like, to notice the parts that are, what voices are here for you right now in the foreground? What are the voices that are here? Like, wow, I'm really grateful what Jack just shared, what Dave shared. Just to notice those voices. And then what are they all arising in? What's this space here? What's the beingness? Are they arising in stillness? Are they arising in awareness? Are they arising in this place of welcoming and understanding? What are they arising in your system? This is just the how are you? What's here now for you? That's really all we're interested in, is your experience. What's real for you? What's it like? What are they arising in? And lastly, to take it to what I'm calling this third view, what are they of? What are these parts of? Before we go on, is there anything bubbling that would like to be shared? Anything bubbling for anybody?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the synchronicity in this, because that is really where I'm at right now. The unsafety that I feel. I have like trauma in my past as well, and um, always felt that I need to take care of myself and look around, because I didn't felt that my parents were there for me to take care of me. Um, so yeah, that happened a lot in the past. I don't want to talk about it, but because of that, I'm in a hyper alertness. I don't know if it's a good English, but so I'm always in that state of hyper alert. If there is anything happening right now there in the room, then I'm like, I'm immediate on, I'm really uh, nothing falls in my space, I'm so quick that I catch it every time when something falls. I'm, yeah, hyper alert, because I feel that I need to control everything that's happening. So yeah, it's really beautiful when Jack was talking. It was like that is the space I know the best, but there is so much around it. When you were talking, Sid, I was like, wow, yeah, I'm caught up in this space, but there is so much around it. Why can I would like to trust that I can step outside this part of me and see that I am carried around. Everything is one. Everything is I'm not that little girl anymore, It's okay. And so, yeah, the unsafety feeling inside me, the tension in my body every day, all day. And also, I have chronic fatigue for 20 years now. So, for me, uh, yeah, I think that's really tiring me up, like the hyper alert state.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Let's just again deal with this beauty that Tara just shared with us, this vulnerability of what's happening, of her experience. What's happening for us as we hear her share this? What's it like to hear her share so transparently what it's like to be inside of Tara. What's that like for us? For starters, is there just not this like overflowing compassion for what she shares? Like a sense of understanding. Gosh, that absolutely makes sense. What she's sharing, this hypervigilance, as she describes this sense of it wasn't safe. My parents weren't there for me. I had to be hypervigilant. I had to, in a sense of, I call an IFS son of a guy, sometimes a connector, a controller. How do I make things safe? I need to control what's happening around me. And we hear her describe the tension that continues in her life today and the chronic fatigue. Notice that if this compassion and understanding arises in our systems for her. And then just for a moment, Tara, can you sense that you're not alone in this? That the four of us, like, gosh, we get this. Yes, we hear this. And there is this compassion and love for what you're describing and for her parts. As she describes this protectiveness, this hypervigilant protectiveness, can we see that part in her? Like, how do you see that part in her? Is it like we have this character in the States, this TV show called Wonder Woman. I don't know if and it's like, is it like a Wonder Woman character in Tara that's just like, hey, I got this. I got it. I'll make sure everything's okay. Like, can you see this part of her as a superhero and how it's doing its very best to take care of her with the hypervigilance to create safety for her? Really, can we just like be wow in awe like this, for me, there's just the Wonder Woman character that's just, she's got it. She's got it. When she's here, everything is safe. It is okay. There's okayness here. So once we find that, then what's our version of this? That Tara is, if she's facilitating us here, where does our system not feel safe? Where do parts of us, vulnerable parts of us, parts of us from our childhood, that still don't feel safe? And our version of Tara's Wonder Woman, this hyper vigilant part that controls things, that takes care of things, that makes it safe. What's our loudest version of that? What's our superhero protector that makes the system safe for us? It does its very best to do that. See if you can find that. And just like this is where Tara is so helpful for us, because it can be easier to see someone else's parts and to honor and love them and be in awe of them. Like when we're in awe of her protector, her hypervigilant part, can we feel the same towards ours? Ours that work so hard to make things safe for us. And then can we also find a part that Dave pointed to as well, that Tara pointed, that's just a little tired of this. Gosh, I have to work so hard. I never get a break. I have to work so hard to have things be safe, okay. Can we find our version of that? A part that's just like, gosh, this is why I'm doing this fundamental well-being thing. That's why I'm doing this stuff. I really wanted to be able to relax and not have to be so careful and protective. Can we find that voice in our system and enjoy that? And then let's just make this all so real. Like Tara was describing in her system, there's a chronic fatigue that's been there. There's been a physical response to all of this. What about in your system? A physical response to the protectiveness that has to be here to all the work and care. In mine, my eyes get strained. I mean, I got an eye problem. My eyes get strained. Can you find your version of the chronic fatigue that Tara speaks of? And then let's see if we can be aware of the theater of our parts, if we can like include it all as we're talking about these parts of us. Because often we blend with one at a time. See if we can see it like a theater. And wow, it's a theater. And wow, this is the theater of Maddie, the theater of Jack, the theater of Dave. We just got to see the theater of Tara. Like, can we see it on the stage? All these parts that are here doing their very best for us. And then is there a part, there's often a critic that's saying you did it wrong. You should have done it differently. Like, gosh, why did you do it this way? Or you should do it more like, it should be more like what Maddie was pointing to in his system, this okayness that's here. Like, can you find, is there a critic there that says you did it wrong? And can that be included in the theater as well? And then the one that's exhausted, that just wants it to change, maybe even desperate for it to change. And again, maybe it helps to zoom out a little bit so we can see it all and be aware of all of this, aware of our theater, see if we can see it all. And we'll come back to Tara in just a moment. And then for those of you, this is an advanced play in this. For those of you who can see it all like this, you can see the theater and enjoy, and you can see it. Then the two more questions. Can there be an enjoyment of the theater? Wow, this is the drama. This is how life is playing inside of me. Wow, neato. And then there's the super advanced version. Can it all be felt? Can all of this play be felt inside? Can all of it, is it okay that we feel the critic, you're doing it wrong, the one that's exhausted, we feel the hypervigilance of the protectors, we feel the vulnerability of this isn't safe, I wasn't safe then and I'm not safe now. Just notice if a little bit of that can be felt. Not to blend with it, just a taste of it. How's it going, Tara? That's a lot. A big window you invited us into in this beauty. How's it going inside of you?
Yeah, really good because I really also loved when you say, can we enjoy the drama, you know? And at this point in my life, I am enjoying everything that is happening in my life because of the chronic fatigue, right? Because I'm here because of the chronic fatigue. I am at the spiritual awakening path because of the chronic fatigue. The vortex healing has brought me here. Everything that I do in my life has given me all these colors, where before 2 years ago I didn't have any colors in my life, and I was like, oh, I want some. I cannot do anything more than what I was doing, and then I found this community and all these colors and all these connections and all these beauties with the fatigue. I can manage this, you know, I can do this. I can enjoy life more than what I was doing before. And yeah, so um, when Maddie said the suffering, the pain and the bliss, there is so much gratefulness underneath all of this for me that I feel more grace than pain or suffering because it's all beautiful to have in my life, what is now.
Wow, let me just pause for just a moment with two things you said. That last one, I feel more grace than suffering. For all of us, what's our relation between grace, fundamental well-being, peace, whatever our words are for this, and suffering? And does it go back and forth? This somehow Locke Kelly's become a theme today. He'll often talk about am I 51% fundamental well-being, you know, and then does it go to less than that? And back and forth. I feel more grace in suffering, Tara says. And Tara also says, I can enjoy life more. I can enjoy life more. How does that play in all of this for us? The enjoyment of life, the enjoyment that we went there at the end. Can all of this be enjoyed, this play that's happening inside of you? And then Tara speaks of, I can enjoy life more. Anything else, Tara? Then we'll open it up to everybody to see how this is, your sharing, your guiding has played for everybody.
Yeah, if it's okay. Yeah, I'm really opening up like, yeah, like a flower, like a lotus. Yeah, it's like I was always like, yeah, not giving so much back because I couldn't enjoy my life. So anyone around me couldn't enjoy me as well. So that was really saddening me at moments when I saw my sisters were having a good relationship with the partner of my mother and they were laughing, and I got really, yeah, sad because of that, because he couldn't enjoy me as well because I couldn't enjoy myself. So has never seen who I am, really. Just the suffering that was there. I was depressed for a long time of my life as well. So yeah, then now where I'm at now in my life, I look back at all of those things like, okay, but it has given me so many tools in life. It has given me such beautiful connection with people also at those moments when I was opening up, when I was vulnerable, when I shared my sadness. All those people were like softening up and they were like blossoming, and they said, oh, that's really sad to hear. And I got connected with all of them, when I shared my suffering.
Yes,
And and that is the beauty of my suffering. My suffering has brought me so many, yeah, oneness.
nice, nice. So let's just dive into this for just a moment where Tara's taking us. Can we all find chapters in our life of that have been of sadness, that have been of suffering, that have been of depression, that have been when we felt like we're missing out on the party. We can't really enjoy others and they can't enjoy me. I'll find that in our systems, in this precious human experience we've all had. Not those periods of our lives, we can find a part that's like, God, I wish that hadn't happened. And I hope that doesn't happen again. We might be able to find, can we find a voice that's like, God, I'm glad that's not here now, or I'm glad it's less, and I'm sure hope it doesn't happen again. It has a preference in that way. And then from another place, from this place of self, this place of being, this, just as Tara was describing, the sadness that's here, the suffering, the depression, can that be welcomed? Can that aspect of our human experience, just like in Tara when she was describing it, I'm guessing we weren't judging it. We were like, wow, she's describing the sadness, the suffering, the depression. There was a sense of being with her, being with that. Can we similarly welcome it in our own system? Sadness, suffering, and depression. Notice self just is a yes. This beingness is a yes. It is a welcoming of what's here. See if you can find that in your own system for that period of your life or whatever comes up of sadness, depression, suffering. Can you find beingness that just welcomes it? That is okay with it being here. That doesn't have a preference. It's not like, God, I want that to go away. How much longer is that going to be here? See if you can taste that. Once you got that, I'm going to push it further again, and I'm going to just use Tara spoke about enjoyment. Is it possible that your very nature can even enjoy that? Can enjoy, oh, there's sadness here. What's that like? Wow, the sadness. I don't want to get up. I don't want to get out of bed. What's it like? What's that like? Depression, suffering. Notice how self welcomes. You don't need to dive into it. So you just get a taste of it. And you being able to enjoy it all. Because this is another one of those shortcuts for what Tara is speaking of for me, home. Like if we really can, if there's not a resistance, the Buddhists say suffering is only from resistance to what is. If we're not resisting the suffering, if we're not resisting the depression, the sadness, then what's here? Or in Locke Kelly terms, if there's not a problem to be solved, what's here? Okay, Tara, before we open it, hear what everybody else has to say, anything else you'd like to add? No.
No, that was probably complete. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's go around real quick and see how this is playing. Or it could just be, no, I said I've been someplace else for the last 30 minutes in my own system. Like, how's life playing in you with where we're going? Who wants to go first?
If I may. I'm aware of the intellectual part. I was appreciating the point from Jack, which was that everything arises with its opposite. And that I see that the bliss is also a part. It's an opposite. Because the self is free of opposites, I believe, I think. Um, and this interesting desire to go into the bliss and instead of into complete openness. It's almost a protector. I don't remember when that came into play. I thought maybe just okay, maybe some kind of like religious rapture when I was a little kid. But so that's sort of like a quandary, like awareness or self or being isn't something. It's not something to uh, assert or bring up. It's not an arising. And in that sense, it's almost like nothing. Like the nothing and then the things, which are opposites. And that's the intellectual part of it, my experience right now. And the other dimension is just the feeling state of this paradoxical, most heartbreaking feeling of ecstatic depression, ecstatic stress, things like that.
How about that? Ecstatic. How do we make sense of what Maddie just said? Ecstatic depression, ecstatic stress, ecstatic. That's like ecstasy, right? Ecstatic depression, ecstatic stress. Can we taste that? Or it's like, no, I can't find that. Doesn't make any sense. I'd like to taste that. And then as Maddie spoke about a preference. Oh, there's a preference for bliss. There's a preference for peace. There's a preference for okayness. We all can find that, right? There's preference for flow, ease, love, joy. We can all find that preference. And then can you find it? This is where it gets tricky in IFS. We call these self-like parts when we stop seeing them as a part. Can we see it as a part that has this preference? In contrast to self, this beingness that just is a yes and an okayness and an embrace and a love of whatever it is. You can find that preference. And then I think my map is a little different. It's interesting and then Maddie points to this this sense of this beingness. Well, the beingness is more like nothing. It's more like the space, maybe the spaciousness, the emptiness, the absolute. And I'm just going to speak from Sid here. Like we find that the truth of that, right? You keep going down and you get to this this before flavor. It just is. They just, the Buddhists will stick right there. It's just equanimity. It doesn't have a color or a flavor. This beingness, this essence. I like using what Rupert Spira calls a concession, a little concession. And the ancients, they called it Satchitananda, right? And they would describe that there's almost like bliss, like there's a capital bliss and a lowercase bliss. Like and the sense of, if you do a little concession from this absolute, that you find, like, what's the feeling of this beingness? And they would say it's it's a causeless bliss. It's a causeless peace. It's a causeless stillness, a causeless love. And that really works for my journey. And then there's the lowercase one, which is kind of cause or comes and goes. But the idea is that this background, the sky, this absolute, that if we do a little concession and feel into it, that it has these causeless qualities to it. And however, again, the Buddhists don't go there. They don't. It's too. It's like, and I can't say this as a blanket, but they prefer the where Maddie's speaking to, like it's just like the equanimity. It just stays there. Maddie, anything else to say to that, to any of this, and then we'll see how things are playing for everybody.
That was helpful frame that you'd say that there's the concession that almost like the radiance of what I called nothing. And that's okay. That's maybe not the absolute, but it's a success that I don't have to get into this quandary about um, the opposites, swinging back and forth between opposites, but that the fact that there's fragrance or ecstatic grief, there's fragrance in the grief. I can rest with that as a stage of growth, maybe.
And also just for kindness for our parts, kindness for this human experience. It's like, because to go with Tara's theme of coming home and welcoming home, it's just, in IFS terms, it's just parts coming home to their nature. And, and then we look at, what are they longing for? And I love what you're doing, Maddie, and talking about ecstatic grief. Oh my gosh, and bringing this ecstasy in. It's like, what are our parts longing for? And so from my system, and part of Effortless IFS is helping the parts, the update, to recognize the tipping point as they recognize that this self, this beingness, is the source of everything that is being longed for. And that's where we do that in the concessions. Well, bliss, fulfillment, welcoming, care, nurture, to find all of that in the home that we are. Any final thoughts, Maddie? And then we'll go to Dave and Jack on this.
There's just this.
Did you say it's just this?
Yeah, there's just this. That's like a GAA phrase.
Before we move on, how does that play for all of us, just to be with, there's just this. There's just this. You find that, can you taste it? That's what I'm calling the third view, or Jack's calling heart mind and the Lock Kelly map. There's just this. Everything is of self, everything is of beingness. There's just this. Or there's just this. There's just this form, this expression. It's just this. How does that play for each of us? Maybe it's not the third, it just, however it plays, let's not limit it to the third view. All right, Dave, Jack, what's happening? Take us someplace.
I'm really enjoying listening to everybody talk about their experiences. They're all. It's also relevant to my experience. Um, and I'm curious at this point. What about Sid the person?
Hmm, thank you. Okay, I'll take a sit turn. I am loving, I'm loving the Maddie's play of ecstatic grief, ecstatic sadness. Such an enjoyment of that. Um, I am just loving this. I just so dove in the richness. I'm losing my voice. It's like it's so fun. Like thinking about the maps, like Jack's map that he shares with Locke, and each of our maps, each of our, like as I hear each of you sharing, I can kind of tune in to the way it's being interpreted, it's made sense of, and there's just an enjoyment in going there. Um, Two things. I have some new friends. I've been hanging out with some new friends that are, and they've helped me in more of the just thisness of it. It's like the enjoyment of the thisness. It's like the just this beauty of life, enjoyment of, and I'm enjoying how that's opening more here. Like as we play, as Tara shares, as Maddie shares, it's just like really the just this. It's like wow, this beingness, this love that we're seeing, this expression, this ecstatic grief, care, understanding. And at the same time, I would say I'm in a difficult period. That's my life. There's a difficult period right now because it's like you open up and this is what you guys hear me. I call it the fine print in this game. As the system opens more, everything, these things that have been held down come up. And there's so much that's up here right now. And I'm not playing the homeopathic IFS game with it. I'm not just taking little tastes of it, or I'm not doing the welcoming of it or the hot tub of it. I am just letting it all have me, letting it all have me, letting the fear, the concern. Like I'm buying a car right now, and there's all this stress about wow, making the decision, and it's just like letting that all be here in the idea of the alchemy that ultimately it's all radiant presence, and it's almost like letting the being shine through it. But at the same time, it's like I've just let it all in, put it all in the stew, let it all in the pot. And there's a heaviness of all of that as this is gradually shining through. And I might have dove in a little too deep. I might have opened up more than the system. I'm feeling the weight of it. I'm feeling a lot of weight here with all of that as it alchemizes, as being shines through, gradually shines through it. How am I doing? Is that making sense? I mean, just yeah. What you guys got as I share that?
The alchemy of the beingness shining through the difficulty or challenge. Beautiful.
How are you finding it? Just letting everything in and
Horrible, horrible, horrible. Um, Fucking horrible in a way. Um, and not a problem and fucking horrible. It's like there's such a weight of it in like of letting it all be here, of just but not from a distance. There's such a, it's like I like this word, like an intimacy beyond intimacy. It's like in IFS terms, I've let it all blend with me. I'm letting it have me. And then in that way, and I'm just waiting. Come on, self, shine through. Come on, radiance, shine through. But it's like, it's just, I don't, it's just fucking heavy, man. Um, pardon my language, but it's just, it's, and I even find in IFS are called firefighters, a little getting away from. It's like, okay, I'm just going to go watch Netflix for a couple hours now. So it's a lot.
Do you feel that what you're doing now is placing yourself in a position of, you know, obviously pain and suffering? Um, is it, do you think that when it eases up, it will be momentum towards, will it be momentum towards something else?
Yeah, it might be in towards what Maddie's speaking of, like where he like that this is it, like the beauty of what is, the beauty of what is, to be able to see the beauty of what is, right? I mean, it's just getting the beauty of what is. God, I'm not sure, Dave. There's for whatever reason, there's a reason I'm letting myself dive into this. I'm not filtering it. I'm not pulling back. I'm letting it all blend. And it seems to be a God, you can tell the weight of this from my language because I don't use this language. I mean, it's just a fucking lot. And it's just but it seems like there seems to be a real richness in like going into the cave. It's like going into the heart of darkness and seeing, this is seeing that the heart of darkness is truly the heart of light, that there's no that to see the light in the darkness, to let it all come here and let it all have me. Um and it's just not that dramatic, but it's just like letting the stress have me, letting all that have me until this shines through, and that seems to be what I'm doing.
Do you feel almost like you're penduluming, like you've kind of swung deeper into pain and suffering, and then the pendulum's going to swing back out in a different direction? Is it something else?
It's more like I like the way Rupert will speak about it, of like the density of content, and that the content becomes more and more transparent to beingness, and that seems to be, for whatever reason, right now it seems to be the favorite way of doing this, like letting the content just have me and let it become. And it's where I mean it's happening. It is becoming transparent. It's slowly, but as it's happening, more is coming, and so it's just that's why it feels so the fucking weightiness of it. But it seems to be, and I can't even track the opening so much because there is such a heaviness with it, with all of this, with letting it all be here. Whoa, that's that's my square. Where do we want to go from here? We got 25 minutes left. We haven't heard from any. We were going to Jack and Dave before Dave. And thank you, Dave. Invited the sharing of what's going on here. How's everybody doing? Is this all right? Was it okay? Did that trigger anybody? Was that all right? We're okay. We're good. Okay.
Every person, when they've spoken about their true experience, has been super relevant.
I just say that because I'm wanting to. Part of my aspiration for our group is that it's a really safe place. It's like, wow, there's love here, there's safety, there's care, there's nurture, there's okayness. And part of it is like I want to be an embodiment of that. I want to be, well, this is what Sid's contributing, is a space of that. He's helping find that resonance for us, and he's one of us that's doing that. I'm wanting to contributing. And so there's a little bit of just a little bit of in sharing the weight that's here. At the same time, I don't want that to detract from contributing of the okayness that our systems, that I would like the space to be for us to be held in. Where are we going now?
Well, it's a very challenging um, resonance or invitation or something, that letting letting all the stress or the grief or whatever I um, have me. There's a little fear about that, a little resistance. So in that way, it's not like, yeah, like, okay, we're all okay or something like that. But it's pointing to an okayness for me that's deeper than okay.
And by the way, I am not recommending this. Like, don't do this insanity that Sid's doing. It's not, don't go there. And there's no need to. We can stay in the gentleness of it all. We can stay in that all. For whatever reason, this is just where this system's going right now. All right. What's bubbling? What's bubbling for us?
Yeah, there's a bunch of parts coming up for me that want to ask you more questions about your situation and that kind of stuff. But one thing I wrote down here that that came to me, you said something along the lines of, now I'm going to speak from Sid, and this is before you did the share or anything. And that made me think, well, when is he not speaking from Sid? And then you went into your share and said, oh, that must be him speaking as Sid when he went into your share. So that's kind of bubbling around in my
Yeah, let me speak to that for just a minute, because that was when Maddie was speaking about the nature of self, and we were exploring that.
yeah.
And because it appears differently for all of us, I wanted to share, well, this is just my kind of relative subjective experience of it. And that's when I was saying, speaking for Sid there. I just didn't want to, because it's so rich, the exploration of what self and what beingness is for all of us. So that was just wanting to highlight that.
So sometimes you're not speaking from Sid. What would
um,
that be like? What would that be
yeah,
like? So
it's
anyway,
it's
that
different.
came up for me. You don't have to answer that question,
It's
but that came
different.
up.
It's like, yeah. Yeah, it's always speaking from the subjective experience of Sid. I just wanted to highlight the the subjectivity of it in while we were discussing what Maddie was bringing up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, so the other thing that came up for me, um, it was this expression that comes up a lot is, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I start having regrets or, whatever it is that's going on. The parts just come back. Well, seemed like a good idea at the time, That doesn't mean it seemed like a good idea now necessarily, but hey, so that comes up for me every once in a while. Um,
Can we pause for just a minute with that? Because it's such a
sure.
gift. It seemed like a good idea at the time. This is where the founder of IFS, Dick Schwartz, says there, there are no bad parts. That every part of us is always doing its very best for our best interest
Yeah.
from its perspective. And it's just, it brings such compassion to our system and such love of our system. And when we can really see that, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Back to you, Jack.
Um, and then the other thing I really connected with is the whole concept of oh, different things we may think of as being really negative, I guess. Different things we may think of as being negative as a way to connect. And that just felt really scary to me.
Will you give us an example?
Not sure I'm willing to share. I mean, it's um I'm not saying anybody's doing this here, right? But mother who makes her kids sick on purpose just so she can, make sure they're in the hospital and take care of it. All the time she's like poisoning them or something like that. You get to hear those weird. There's a name for that. What's the name for that? I forget the name.
Mhm.
Um, it seems like I mean,
Shitty
if you,
parenting.
I'm sorry.
Shitty parenting.
Well, yeah, but there's a more specific psychological. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I'm thinking, okay, but yeah, but on a more mild level, people's you I mean you feel comfortable with people, you're willing to share these negative things with them, right? So not that I'm trying to make things negative, but that if they do come up that way, I feel comfortable enough with you to share it with you, which is a really strong connection in a lot of ways. So there's parts that struggling with that, and there's parts that are not struggling with it, and I can see both of them together. So I mean, I can go to the place where that's not really a there's no necessarily problem there, but it is an interesting sort of I want to use the word paradox. Maybe that's not quite right.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if that's going on and I'm just not seeing it sometimes. If that's like a shadow element that's going on with me.
So let's look at this that Jack's pointing to. First off, how does it translate for you what Jack's sharing? And like where it went for me was that remember that Nelson Mandela quote from years ago that Marianne Williamson was sharing about it's not it's not our fear that we're scared of something it's our light, it's our magnificence that we're scared of. It's our true nature. It's this beingness that we are that we're really scared of avoiding. And it's like, can we find these parts that kind of find comfort in, oh, I know the way, or this is the way I dress, or this is who I am, or I'm not that. I'm not the light of God. I am not this divine light. I am not this magnificent fundamental well-being. I'm not this love. I'm not this bliss being. I'm Sid. I'm contained here in this lifetime. I've look at my face. I got all these wrinkles. And it's like, can we find that's where I go, this sense of finding comfort in this in big concessions. What about you, Jack? Where does it play? How does this play for you?
I got plenty of wrinkles. I don't know. Yeah, it sort of comes back to like um not turning my back, not rejecting anything. That as soon as I feel any sense of rejection of, this what's arising or this appearance, I know there's something that's not quite
Nice. What
as
about
I guess
what
it's
about
like
the
a pointer. It's a
comfort?
pointer for me, right? It's a pointer, yeah.
Yes, but there's a reason we stick with the identification. There's a reason that the controller parts, the protector parts, they feel comfortable, they feel safe.
Yeah, it seems like a good idea at the time, right?
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything bubbling with this for anybody else?
Yes. Oh my God. Uh, I just keep going back to everybody's, like, it's just been so relevant today. It's when Jack was speaking about the person who wants the attention and goes to a negative place to get it. It's interesting because I feel like I've been going back and to a negative place and examining it, and then almost like walking a pathway or something towards increased fundamental well-being. And then I go back and I walk it again, and I go back and I walk it again. And for me, the reason why I've been coming to spend time with you here at IFS is to have a better understanding, and through that, a better release of my parts. And Jack, when you said that, when you were talking, I realized that, I go back and I examine, the reasons for it, and then I, have a better understanding, and then I move forward, and then I go back and I, examine it, and I feel like recently that there's been some movement in not being caught up so much in the parts, and my protector part, and being able to spend more time in just openness. And I realized when Jack was speaking, well, I mean, that's why I'm here. you know I made a conscious effort to come here to be able to do this, but of course, I get caught up in it. I'm examining the hurt, for attention, primarily for my own attention, but also, your attention and your kind of teachings, what comes back, and your experiences, and so yeah, that's what's bubbling now. It's beautiful. Thank you.
How does that play for us as we hear for Dave and be yearning to open more, to let the parts release their burdens, to heal, let this light of being shine through? Is that, if he's facilitating and speaking to your system, what's that like? Got like 11 minutes left, and how's it going, Maddie and Tara? Oh, Dave, you got more. Tell us more.
There's another thing. And when Maddie was talking, I have when I'm in a process of letting go of, and it doesn't really matter what it is, I have a somatic, like I have a physical sensation of, and I call it resting sadness. And so I guess it's like saying goodbye or releasing or letting go, but I get a physical sensation from it. And when I'm, letting go of conditionings, I experience resting sadness, and that's partly what I'm feeling right now. When I say resting, it's like a calm, and then the best way I can describe it is sadness. But that's just the experience of letting go, I think, because it happens.
Resting sadness, as we hear Dave speak of that. What does that touch in you? How does that make sense in your system? Resting sadness. And is it okay that that's here?
It's not a negative sensation. It's a calm sensation, but it's the best way I can describe it.
Right. How's it going? How's it going, Maddie and Tara? Tara, how are we doing? How are we doing with this experience of home, that in the different flavors of home and glimpses of depth? How are the four of us doing today? How have we done in giving you kind of an experience of what you were interested in?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, it's because I really love the vulnerability of all of you, all of your sharing, and also Dave asked you, Sid, how you are like, and I was questioning myself the same, like how is Sid feeling right now, you know? And I was like, okay, let's give Sid some space for his particles or whatever, you know? And yeah, I really like also that Dave was questioning more about you um, and in the end, I was like, and Jack also mentioned that just when he was speaking, like the the part that is suffering wants to be seen, right? And when it's seen, it connects with all of us. And when you were sharing, you all were sharing some suffering or pain or whatever, then I felt the connection again. And I was like, I was feeling compassion for all of you. And I was feeling like, yeah, we're all human beings, all having same experiences, but in different sort of lights or focus points, or but it's all because of where we come from, right? And it's all really sounds very logical to me, all of our um, yeah, all of our things that come to light and which we love now to share with each other, right? So then, yeah, and the bliss underneath the the grief or suffering and the ecstatic side of it. I also felt it, you know, lately. I was like crying in suffering, like I was crying, but I felt so much grateful, light, bliss. Like I was so grateful for where I am in my life. Like this grief, this pain has brought me here. I'm so thankful. And yeah, and again, when you were sharing, it really, yeah, made it whole. Like again, like yeah, the oneness.
Mm.
Really loved every bit of it. Yeah. Really good
Beautiful.
to hear from you all. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
I'm wondering if we're all able to receive this that Tara's speaking of, that the gift that we were, that we are for her in just our authenticity and our sharing of how life is moving, and can receive that, how she enjoyed that, how that was helpful for her, how it was perceived, the whole and the logic, the way, when she says the logic of it, I love that. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Because as we can see that that makes sense, or as Jack was saying, oh, it was, how do you say, it was, sounds like a good idea then, it was the best we could do. It just engenders such compassion and understanding and welcoming of how life is moving in us. And again, when everything is welcomed, when everything is loved just as it is, as there's compassion for everything that's is, if there's no resistance to what's arising inside of us, Shazam. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you too, Sid. Really beautiful, everything. Yeah.
Maddie, how's it going? We got like 5 minutes left. How's it going? How's it coming for you? How do we do with some of those IFS discernments and just what you had brought up at the beginning?
I am resonated with Dave's image of calm sadness, of letting go. Maybe that's in my language, that's maybe the ecstatic grief or depression, ecstatic depression, maybe. That or grief. That it's like the opposite parts, but there's also a deeper process of their unburdening in their oppositeness. They're meeting, the opposites meeting and dissolving in some way. That's helpful for me because the states seem so extreme, but the destination is not extreme. Destination is open.
Mhm. Mm. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you. And home. Yeah,
And home. Mm.
it's a good one too.
What's it like for us as we're with Maddie, as we received his gifts, we hear what's happening in him. What's that like for us? And how are you as we move towards closure here? We'll just hear quickly from Dave and Jack in this last couple minutes how they are in closure. But how are you? What's happening inside of you? What's it like? Jack, final words for the day.
Um, I don't know if you've ever seen the video. It was pretty popular a few years back where this couple is talking and the I think usually it's a sarcastic video, but and the woman is complaining about this horrible pain she's got, and and she's sharing very authentically this pain, and you zoom in, she's got like a nail sticking out of her forehead. Have you seen the video I'm talking about or not? No? And her partner says, you've got a nail sticking out of your forehead. She goes, oh, you're not listening to me. I'm trying to share my feelings with you. I'm trying to accept what is. All the things I just sort of heard everybody, saying was wonderful. I can just tell you, if I come to the meeting, I've got a freaking nail sticking out of my forehead, please remind me that maybe that's the problem. Okay. So I
Okay.
guess I'm feeling really practical about um, if I'm feeling some kind of negativity, there's a part of me that says, well, okay, well maybe you can fix it. You don't have to like lie down and be a welcoming mat to pain necessarily, right? So that part of me is just coming up real strong. If you haven't seen the video, it's just hilarious the way he did. It's a sarcastic
Will you send
video.
it to will you send it to will you send
I
it
don't
to
know
me,
if I can
Jack, if
find
you
it,
have it?
but if you just Google like woman with a nail coming out of her head video or something like that, I'll try to find it. But
So let
so
me
I sometimes get this feeling of like, well, I'm sharing, and I do feel like I'm sharing stuff here, and I feel like there's something I'm not seeing that I'm afraid. There's a part of me that's afraid that there's something I'm just not seeing, and if someone could only just tell me, oh yeah, Jack, here's the that's the wow, thank you so much, but they won't, but I'll reject it. Oh no, no, I just want to share what I'm feeling with you, blah blah. You know what I mean? That whole sort of thing. I don't know. That's what came up for me. So I hope that doesn't bother anybody too much. That's what was coming up, but
oh, wow.
because I do
I
enjoy
l-
sharing stuff. But
I love
I'll
that.
see if I can
Can
see
we
the video too. I'll see if I can find it.
I'll try to find it. Can we all relate to that? Like who was it? Was it Dave that I forget who had the part that I just want relief from this. I want it to stop. I think it was, want some relief. Um, and it and what about what Dave was saying as far as seeing the nail that's in our forehead and maybe the resistance that comes up to it? And then also, like for me, that's what we were doing all day today and talking just from what Tara was saying, talking about home, talking about this. We were looking at different ways of finding home, finding okayness in the midst of this. And for some, it might just be removing the nail. In IFS terms, suffering's only caused from blending with a part. It's like, oh, I'm blended with a part. That's what's going on here. And then we played with all these different ways of being with that, of welcoming. If everything's welcome, where's the problem? Or if everything is of this beingness, where's the problem? Or if I'm stepping back into this perfectly okayness, where's the problem? Everything's okay there. Just all these different dances and ways. Or I want to say what Dave was speaking. Was it Dave or Tara was speaking of authenticity? Authenticity. Wow, when we're being fully authentic, oh, is that a window to this? So what a beautiful thing. And Dave, we're 1 minute over. Give us some final words as our closure today, will you? But before you say that, let me just say one thing for Maddie and Tara, because this is a lot. This hour and a half is a lot. And just want you to know if you come back often, there's totally options. People leave at an hour. And so this is because this is heavy. This is a lot. Dave, our final words for the day.
Gratitude.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, it just sums it all up for me. And it's a lot of effort. that you put into this. That not only in what you do now, but in how you got to this place. You know, you spent a lot of years studying to be able to do this so effortlessly, and and you know, as a facilitator and as a real person, you know, we have a lot of gratitude for what you do here. And I just want to thank you for all of the effort that you have made, and to let you know that you have made a big difference in our lives through what you do here.
Thank you.
So gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much for your gift. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'm receiving this, Dave. I'm really going to be sitting with that for a while. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.